One day, you wake up, and the world feels quieter, not because the noise is gone, but because life has stopped rushing to impress you. At 75, something strange happens. People don't talk about it openly. Society avoids it. Families whisper about it. But whether you like it or not, life changes its rules for you. Your body begins to speak louder than your plans. Time stops negotiating. And suddenly, the future is no longer endless, it becomes precious. You realize something shocking. You've spent decades preparing for life, only to discover that this phase tests you the most. Some people break here. Some become bitter. Some fade quietly into the background. But others awaken into a deeper wisdom, a sharper clarity, and a freedom most people never experience. In today's video, we're talking about what really happens after you turn 75. The changes no one warns you about, the truths no one prepares you for, and the transformations that arrive, whether you accept them or not. This is not fear. This is reality. And if you understand it early, you gain power. So, before we begin, like this video if you value truth over comfort, subscribe to the channel if you want wisdom that actually prepares you for life, and watch till the end, because the final point may change how you see aging forever. Let's begin. 1. Your body stops negotiating. After 75, the body stops bargaining with you. There are no second chances hidden inside tomorrow. No, I'll fix it later. No forgiveness stored for weekends or excuses. Earlier in life, you could disrespect your body and still survive. You could sleep 4 hours and function. You could eat badly for years and pretend nothing was happening. Pain could be ignored, postponed, masked with tablets, buried under work and distractions. The body absorbed the abuse silently, like a loyal servant that never complained. But after 75, that servant retires. Every night of poor sleep announces itself the next morning through stiff joints, cloudy thoughts, and a heaviness in the chest that wasn't there before. You wake up tired not because you did too much, but because the body no longer recovers the way it once did. Food choices no longer disappear into metabolism. They stay with you, settle inside you, turn into inflammation, discomfort, weakness. A single careless meal can affect your entire day, sometimes your entire week. Pain, especially, becomes unforgiving. A small ache in the knee is no longer nothing. A tightness in the chest is no longer just stress. A little dizziness is no longer, I'll rest later. Because after 75, pain speaks the language of warning, not inconvenience. This is when people realize the cruel truth. The body never betrays you, it only reports how you treated it. Every shortcut taken earlier now sends an invoice. Every ignored signal now returns with interest. The body is no longer interested in your intentions. It only responds to actions. At this age, health stops being about mirrors and compliments. It's no longer about looking young. It's about standing up without help, about walking without fear of falling, about breathing without effort, about waking up and knowing you still have control over your own body. Freedom becomes physical. The ability to use the bathroom alone, to climb stairs without panic, to eat without discomfort, to sleep without pain dictating your position. These become victories. And here is the brutal divide. Those who listen to their body survive stronger. They adjust their pace. They respect rest. They eat with awareness. They move gently but consistently. They stop proving toughness and start protecting longevity. Others refuse to adapt. They treat pain like an enemy instead of a message. They ignore signs because admitting weakness feels humiliating. They cling to old habits out of pride, and slowly, silently, their world shrinks. Their movement reduces. Their independence fades. Their suffering becomes invisible to others but unbearable to themselves. After 75, the body is no longer something you use. It is something you maintain with humility. Because at this stage, the body doesn't ask for discipline. It demands respect. And once you understand this truth in your bones, you realize something profound. Aging doesn't steal your strength. Disrespect does. 2. Your circle shrinks, but becomes real. After 75, people don't leave your life with arguments or dramatic goodbyes. They disappear the way daylight fades slowly, silently, without asking permission. Some leave because life ends. Chairs remain empty. Names are spoken less often. Birthdays arrive without certain voices calling. You don't get over this. You simply learn to live around the absence. Others drift away because distance grows. Families scatter. Priorities change. And some are still alive, still reachable, yet they stop calling. Not out of cruelty, but because time rearranges importance. What hurts most is not the loss itself. It's the realization that not everyone who once mattered still fits in your life. And then something unexpected happens. You stop chasing. You stop asking why messages go unanswered. You stop initiating conversations that feel forced. You stop explaining your silence. Not because you're bitter, but because you finally understand the cost of empty connections. After 75, peace becomes more valuable than presence. You'd rather sit in a quiet room with your thoughts than sit at a table where you feel invisible. Loud laughter no longer impresses you. Crowds exhaust you. Conversations without sincerity drain you faster than solitude ever could. You begin to notice energy. You notice who listens without waiting to speak, who respects your pace, who doesn't rush you through stories you've earned the right to tell. And suddenly, one genuine visitor feels heavier than 10 casual ones ever did. Your circle shrinks, and at first, this feels frightening. Fewer calls, fewer invitations, fewer names written in your diary. But slowly, fear gives way to clarity. You realize that quantity was never protection. It was distraction. Real connection doesn't shout. It sits beside you. It waits. It stays. A single person who checks on you without obligation. One conversation that doesn't rush the silence. One presence that doesn't make you feel like a burden. This becomes everything. At this age, you no longer tolerate fake energy. You sense it immediately. The politeness without care, the smiles without patience, the visits made out of duty instead of love. And you quietly step away, not with anger, but with acceptance. Because after 75, emotional energy is limited, and you refuse to spend it on people who don't know how to hold it. You also forgive more easily. You stop resenting those who left. You understand that everyone is fighting their own clock, their own fears, their own distractions. You don't take absence personally anymore. This is not loneliness. This is refinement. Your world becomes smaller but deeper, quieter but warmer. And in that quiet, you finally hear yourself clearly. At this stage of life, you don't need many people to feel alive. You need real ones. And once you experience that level of authenticity, you realize something powerful. Being alone is far less painful than being surrounded by people who don't truly see you. 3. Time feels different. At a certain age, time stops feeling endless. After 75, it stops feeling generous. Years no longer stretch ahead like open roads. They feel fragile, almost breakable, like glass you handle carefully because you know it won't survive a fall. The future no longer promises abundance. It offers possibility with limits. And that realization changes everything. Birthdays stop being loud celebrations. The cake is still there. The wishes still come. But inside, something is different. Each candle is no longer a symbol of joy. It's a quiet reminder that time is subtracting, not adding. You smile for others, but privately, you count differently now. Not in years, in moments. You stop asking, "What will I do next year?" You start asking, "Will I still be able to do this again?" Time becomes physical. A morning cup of tea becomes sacred not because it tastes better, but because you are fully present for it. The warmth in your hands, the silence around you, the fact that you woke up without pain strong enough to steal the day, these are no longer small things. They are proof that time has been kind for now. A short walk without discomfort feels like a gift, not a routine. You notice how your body moves, how the air feels, how the ground supports you. Earlier in life, you rushed through these moments. Now you inhabit them, and voices, familiar voices, become priceless. A phone call from someone who still remembers your stories. A conversation that doesn't feel rushed. A name spoken with warmth instead of obligation. These moments stay with you longer than entire years once did. Time also teaches restraint. You stop postponing joy. You stop tolerating what drains you. You stop saying, "I'll do it someday." Because after 75, someday feels dishonest. You understand the brutal truth. Time doesn't announce when it's running out. It just quietly reduces your chances. And suddenly, waste feels painful. Wasted days, wasted energy, wasted conversations, wasted anger. You no longer spend hours arguing over things that won't matter tomorrow. You don't cling to grudges that steal sleep. You don't stay where you're not at peace. Time has taught you its final lesson. What you give your attention to becomes your life. And so you choose carefully. You choose rest over rushing, meaning over noise, depth over distraction. Time may feel shorter now, but it feels truer. And when you finally understand this, you realize something powerful. It wasn't that life moved fast. It's that you were finally paying attention. 4. You care less about opinions. Finally, after 75, something loosens inside you. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but permanently. You wake up one day and realize you are tired not of life, but of performing for it. Tired of adjusting your words so others feel comfortable. Tired of smiling when you want silence. Tired of explaining yourself to people who never tried to understand you in the first place. For decades, opinions ruled your decisions. How you dressed, how you spoke, what you pursued. You learned early that approval was currency, and you paid for it with effort, compromise, and self-denial. You proved your worth through work. You measured your value through recognition. You edited yourself to fit into rooms that never truly belonged to you. After 75, that weight becomes unbearable because you've survived worse than judgment. You've survived loss. You've survived disappointment. You've survived nights where no one clapped, no one noticed, no one came. And once you survive that, the fear of being misunderstood loses its power. You begin to dress for comfort, not impression. Clothes are chosen for warmth, ease, and familiarity, not for how they'll be interpreted. Shoes that don't hurt matter more than shoes that impress. You sit the way your body needs, not the way manners demand. And the relief is profound. Your voice changes too. You stop softening truths to avoid reactions. You speak honestly, not harshly, but clearly. You say what you mean without preparing a defense. You no longer over-explain decisions that cost you peace. No becomes a complete sentence. No guilt, no apology, no justification. You don't attend gatherings out of obligation. You don't stay in conversations that drain you. You don't agree just to avoid tension. And when people react, you let them. Because after 75, you understand something most people never do. Other people's opinions are reflections of their lives, not judgments of yours. This is freedom delayed, but earned. It doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you unavailable for nonsense. You stop chasing acceptance and start protecting your energy. You stop asking for permission to exist the way you are. You stop shrinking so others feel taller. And the irony? The moment you stop trying to be liked, you become more real. Some people won't understand you anymore. Some will say, "You've changed." They're right. You have. You've finally chosen peace over performance, truth over approval, comfort over image. After 75, life gives you one final gift: the courage to be exactly who you are without explanation. And once you taste that freedom, you realize something powerful. This is how you were always meant to live. 5. Memories become louder than plans. At this stage of life, the future no longer speaks in promises. It whispers. Plans become smaller, softer, more cautious. Not because hope is gone, but because reality has taught you how unpredictable tomorrow truly is. You no longer build castles in the distance. You build peace in the present. And in that quiet, the past begins to speak clearly. Memories arrive uninvited. Not all at once, but gently, persistently. A face you haven't seen in decades. A conversation you didn't finish. A road you didn't take. You find yourself replaying moments first. Loves, lost chances, sacrifices no one noticed. Decisions made in fear instead of courage. Surprisingly, it doesn't always hurt the way it used to, because you're not remembering to suffer. You're remembering to understand. You begin to see patterns you were blind to when you were living inside them. You recognize why you chose security over passion, why you stayed when you should have left, why you left when staying felt impossible. You realize that many of your mistakes were not failures, they were survival strategies. At this age, judgment softens. You understand people differently now. The ones who hurt you, the ones who disappointed you, even the ones who betrayed you. You see their limitations, their fears, their unhealed wounds. You stop asking, "Why did they do this to me?" and start asking, "What were they carrying that I couldn't see back then?" And in that understanding, something heavy begins to lift. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because you do. You forgive yourself for not knowing better, for choosing wrongly with the information you had, for being human in moments where perfection was impossible. Regret changes its shape. It no longer screams. It teaches. You realize that every painful experience carved something into you: patience, strength, empathy, depth. The wisdom you now carry didn't come from books, lectures, or advice. It came from lived pain, from nights you cried quietly, from choices that cost you sleep, from carrying responsibilities that no one else saw. This is the education no one advertises. And the greatest realization? You wouldn't trade this wisdom even if you could erase the pain. Because now, you see life whole, not as a series of wins and losses, but as a journey of becoming. The past no longer traps you. It completes you. It gives meaning to who you are now. After 75, memories don't haunt you. They guide you. And when you finally make peace with them, you understand something profound. Your life was never about perfect plans. It was about becoming someone who could understand it all in the end. 6. Energy becomes sacred. At a certain age, you realize something most people learn too late. Energy is not unlimited. After 75, you don't wake up with the same emotional fuel you once had. Not because you are weak, but because life has taught you how expensive attention truly is. Every argument costs more. Every reaction drains deeper. Every unnecessary conflict steals something that doesn't easily return. So you stop wasting it. You no longer raise your voice to be heard. You no longer explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer fight to win conversations that leave you exhausted and empty afterward. Earlier in life, arguments felt necessary. You defended your pride, you protected your image, you proved your point even when it cost you sleep, peace, and relationships. Back then, conflict felt like strength. Now, silence feels stronger. You walk away from drama faster, not because you don't see it, but because you see it too clearly. You recognize the patterns immediately: the person who feeds on reactions, the conversation designed to provoke, the situation that will go nowhere no matter how much you invest. And instead of engaging, you step back. This is not avoidance. This is wisdom. You protect your peace like treasure because you finally understand its value. Peace is what allows you to sleep without tension in your chest. Peace is what keeps your blood pressure steady. Peace is what lets you enjoy the small moments without bitterness poisoning them. After 75, you realize something profound. Not every battle deserves your breath. Some arguments are designed to drain you, not resolve anything. Some people don't want understanding, they want control, validation, or chaos. And you refuse to offer your limited energy to unlimited nonsense. Calm becomes your greatest strength. Calm allows you to observe instead of react, to respond instead of explode, to leave without proving a point, to remain dignified while others lose themselves. You also become selective with emotions. You don't spend anger easily. You don't give sadness unnecessary space. You don't carry guilt that doesn't belong to you. You choose where your emotional weight rests because carrying too much now has consequences your body will not ignore. Even joy becomes intentional. You seek places, people, and routines that restore you instead of draining you. A quiet morning, familiar surroundings, conversations that don't rush you, laughter that doesn't require effort. This sacred relationship with energy changes how you live. You become slower but deeper, quieter but stronger, less reactive but more present. And in that stillness, you discover something extraordinary. You don't need to win every battle to win at life. After 75, strength is no longer loud. It is measured. It is calm. It is protected. And once you understand this truth, you realize something unforgettable. Peace is not weakness. It is the final form of power. 7. Dependence teaches humility. This is one of the hardest truths to face, not because it is painful, but because it touches pride at its deepest root. For most of your life, you were independent. You carried responsibilities. You solved problems. People relied on you. You were the one who gave help, not the one who asked for it. Strength meant standing alone, needing nothing, managing everything silently. After 75, that definition of strength begins to crack. You may need help physically, emotionally, practically. Someone to hold your arm while walking. Someone to lift what your body no longer can. Someone to repeat instructions patiently. Someone to check in not because you asked, but because they care. At first, this feels humiliating. Your mind remembers who you were. Your body reminds you who you are now. And the gap between the two hurts more than any physical pain. You struggle internally. You apologize too much. You hesitate before asking. You tell yourself, I don't want to be a burden. You measure your worth by how little you need from others, even when the cost is exhaustion, pain, or risk. But slowly, something shifts. You realize that refusing help doesn't make you strong, it makes you alone. And when you finally allow yourself to receive kindness, gratitude replaces shame. You notice the gentleness in a hand that supports you, the patience in someone who waits for your pace, the sincerity in someone who listens without rushing you. You begin to understand something profound. Dependence is not failure, it is connection. You learn the true value of kindness, not the kind spoken about in words, but the kind shown in small, consistent actions. A glass of water brought without asking, a door held open, a quiet presence that says, you matter, even now. This experience changes you. Pride softens. You no longer measure your worth by productivity. Ego dissolves. You stop clinging to the image of who you used to be. You stop competing with your past. In its place, something deeper grows. Acceptance. You accept your limitations without resentment. You accept help without humiliation. You accept the truth of aging without anger. And in doing so, you discover a peace you never knew when you were constantly proving yourself. You also become more compassionate. You notice others who struggle. You see vulnerability where you once saw weakness. You offer patience instead of judgment, because now you understand how heavy it feels to need support. This is the quiet wisdom of dependence. It teaches you that life was never meant to be lived alone, that giving and receiving are two halves of the same dignity, that worth does not disappear when independence fades. After 75, humility doesn't make you smaller, it makes you lighter. And when ego finally steps aside, you realize something unforgettable. Acceptance is not surrender. It is the deepest form of strength. 8. Death becomes a companion, not a threat. After 75, death is no longer a distant idea. It is no longer something that belongs to newspapers, hospitals, or other people's stories. It becomes familiar. You see it around you not dramatically, but repeatedly. Empty chairs at gatherings, fewer names spoken out loud, old friends who were once strong now, remembered in the past tense. Each loss doesn't scream, it whispers. And those whispers follow you home. At first, there is fear, not of dying, but of time slipping away unnoticed. You begin to feel death in silence, in long evenings where the house feels bigger than it used to, in moments when the phone doesn't ring, in mornings when you wake up and realize another day has been given quietly, without announcement. And then something unexpected happens. Death stops feeling like an enemy. It becomes a companion, not welcome, but honest. It sits beside you and reminds you of something life never did clearly before. This moment matters. You stop pretending you have endless tomorrows. You stop rushing through today. You no longer postpone love, forgiveness, or peace, because now the cost of delay feels heavier than the discomfort of truth. Strangely, death gives life depth. A simple meal tastes richer. Sunlight through a window feels intentional. A familiar voice feels irreplaceable. You start respecting life not obsessively, but reverently. You care for your body without panic. You care for your relationships without drama. You care for your time without waste. You don't fear death. You fear dying without having truly lived. And so you slow down. You walk slower, but notice more. You speak less, but mean more. You listen longer, because you know silence is not empty, it's full of presence. Life becomes layered. You don't measure days by productivity anymore. You measure them by peace, by connection, by whether you were present enough to feel something real. You also stop judging life harshly. You accept that beginnings and endings are not opposites, they are partners. That every breath carries both life and its limit. And instead of panicking, this knowledge grounds you. After 75, death doesn't hover to scare you. It stands beside you to teach you. It teaches you gratitude without desperation, humility without despair, meaning without urgency. And in this companionship, you discover a profound truth. When you stop fearing death, you finally learn how to live. You live slower, but deeper, and in that depth, life becomes complete, even before it ends. 9. You finally understand what matters. After 75, something extraordinary happens. Life removes the noise. Not all at once, but layer by layer. The things that once screamed for your attention slowly lose their voice. Money, which once felt like security, ambition, and validation, begins to lose its shine. You still respect it, but it no longer defines you. You realize it was never the goal, it was a tool. And now, even that tool feels secondary. Status follows the same path. Titles that once impressed others no longer impress you. Positions that once demanded sacrifice now feel distant, almost irrelevant. You stop introducing yourself by what you did and start understanding yourself by who you were to people. The applause fades and you discover it was never what kept you warm at night. Noise loses its attraction. Crowds, constant opinions, endless updates, and the need to stay visible all begin to feel exhausting. You crave quiet not because you are lonely, but because silence finally makes sense. In silence, you hear your thoughts clearly. In silence, you feel life instead of chasing it. And when all that falls away, something honest remains. Peace. Not the absence of problems, but the absence of unnecessary struggle. Peace becomes the ability to breathe without tension, to sleep without regret, tightening your chest, to wake up without feeling you owe the world an explanation. Dignity becomes essential. You care deeply about how you live, not how you are seen. You value keeping your word. You value treating people gently. You value leaving rooms without bitterness. Dignity becomes your final reputation, one that doesn't require witnesses. Connection becomes priceless. Not shallow connection, not frequent connection, but real connection. A hand held without words. A conversation that doesn't rush you. A presence that stays even when nothing is being offered in return. You realize that one genuine connection outweighs a lifetime of popularity. And then there is meaning. Meaning no longer comes from achievement. It comes from alignment. From knowing you lived as honestly as you could. From knowing you loved where you could. From knowing you tried even when you failed. After 75, life strips away illusions without apology. It shows you that chasing approval was never fulfillment, that collecting things never filled emptiness, that rushing never created depth, and it leaves you with truth, simple, quiet, undeniable. You see life clearly now. And here is the greatest surprise of all. This stage doesn't weaken you. It completes you. Because now, you are no longer becoming, you are being. You are no longer proving. You are present. And in that presence, life finally makes sense. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. As we conclude, after 75, life stops pretending. It no longer distracts you with noise, speed, or illusion. It slows you down not to punish you, but to show you the truth clearly. Your body demands respect. Your circle becomes real. Time feels fragile. Opinions lose power. Memories teach instead of hurt. Energy becomes sacred. Dependence humbles you. Death deepens life. And in the end, you finally understand what truly matters. Not more money, not louder applause, not endless chasing, but peace, dignity, connection. Meaning, this stage of life doesn't weaken you, it completes you. It strips away everything unnecessary and leaves you with what is real. And if you embrace it, you don't fade, you arrive. If this video made you pause, reflect, or see life differently, like this video, it helps this message reach people who need it. Subscribe to the channel if you want more truth, depth, and wisdom that prepares you for life, not just entertains you. And remember, aging is not the loss of life. Unawareness is. Stay aware, stay present,